Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us to listen today. I am joined by the lovely Julia, who is going to tell us all about what she's been up to with families. So thank you so much for joining me, Julia.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's so lovely to have you here. We love following your journey on socials and seeing what you're up to. So I'm hoping that we can get stuck into all of that. But would you just start by telling the folks who might not know you a little bit about you and your role as a holistic sleep coach?
So thank you again so much for having me and interviewing me for the program. I'm mom of two kids that don't need a lot of sleep. My oldest is 3 and my youngest just turned 7 months. I'm a childcare professional. I've previously worked with school-age children and adolescents. And I've gotten into sleep coaching due to my own experience with sleep. Like most parents, I was targeted by the algorithm with, sleep schedules. And I really felt like during my pregnancy that sleep is something that I can control and I got this. And then my son entered the world who just wasn't only a sensitive child, but really he just needed so much less sleep than anything I've seen online. And it really affected my confidence and my mental health. After my own journey with sleep, I decided to become a sleep coach and work with families. So since the end of 2022, I think I've been seeing clients internationally with all types of sleep challenges and goals, and have been helping them online via one-to-one, mainly one-to-one support to reach their sleep goals without sleep training.
Amazing. We love all of that. And what was it like? Obviously you had that experience as a mum, and your kids, they hadn't read the book, they hadn't read the downloadable charts about how much sleep kids need, and totally relatable, by the way. And I'm sure lots of people listening will be like, yep, that's my kid too. But what was it like? Was there a moment where you thought, actually, I'm not just a mum who's really interested in sleep, I'm also somebody who wants to change career and make this the thing that I do? What tipped you into that decision?
I've been a client before. I've worked with Patrice when my son was 9 weeks old. And, just the confirmation that it's not me, but more so, the information that is out there. It had such a lasting impact on me and my parenting, and especially my mental health. I really struggled with postpartum anxiety and depression. And, I've basically kept on learning and reading ever since I was coached as a client. And I basically couldn't stop consuming sleep information. And I was really passionate about it. And at the time, I had a really demanding role, and I was on maternity leave. In Germany, you have the option to stay at home for 3 years if you want to. And it just became clear that I didn't want to go back to my old job. It wasn't really compatible with family life. It was shift work. And for my son, I didn't feel comfortable putting him into childcare that young. Coming from a childcare background myself, I just felt like I could do it better. And I was just looking for something, because parenting him was quite demanding, just something else that can fill my cup, basically. And it honestly was a little bit of a hobby, because I'm reading all this stuff. I know so much about sleep, and I really want to tell someone about all the things that have changed for me. And, just by having individual, support. And I just really wanted to share that with other parents, because I know, spending time, on your account, other responsive sleep coaches accounts, that I wasn't the only one, and a lot of people were struggling. And I also felt that, having a kid that is very sensitive and also low sleep needs, I found that to be a particular combination that I hadn't seen a lot. And it was also kind of, for me just to, because I didn't have that community of other parents who could relate. So it was also a bit selfish, but it definitely seemed to fit in well during that time of my life, to kind of start a career that I could scale in my own time. That was something that was fun and fulfilling and really meaningful. And I just knew that, it probably would have been a mistake not to pursue it, because I basically spent all my time reading about sleep, all my free time reading about sleep. So I just wanted to share
Yeah.
that.
Amazing. Yeah. And big shout out to Patrice there. Thank you for your work too. Yeah, Patrice
Yes.
trained with us many, many years ago. now. So it's always lovely to hear that that was, you know, part of your journey as well. But I suppose I'm curious now. So you've got two young children and you've got a very successful business. How have you managed to make that work? You obviously felt like you couldn't go back into your previous role because you wanted to prioritize your kids. How are you managing? Like, tell us the secret. How do you manage? How have you gone from one child through pregnancy to your second child? Like, tell us a little bit about that journey and how that's working for you.
Oh God, so that definitely was a huge learning experience, especially with social media, because I was just a consumer basically. I wasn't someone who ever posted something. So that definitely was a steep learning curve. I remember you gave me some really valuable advice during a coaching call when I was still studying, and I was asking about social media and I wasn't unsure, and you just told me to just start an account right now while I was still studying. And that was honestly the best advice, because it just gave me permission to just try something and fail, and to grow my audience in an authentic way while taking them along my journey. And that's been really great. But how I've managed it is basically I try to be consistent on social media, but it's never like the good thing is I'm the boss, so I can decide if I need to take time off. So it's worked really well for my life with my young children. And during pregnancy, my son basically spends a lot of time with his grandparents. And during that time, I scheduled, my calls. I had certain days where I was working, and I prioritized posting, I don't know, 5 times a week. And I guess I've just made a point in always being really transparent and sharing how I work, because I feel like that is really lacking in the sleep world. Even gentle doesn't really have any meaning, and it can be really difficult to find the sleep coach you align with. So I really try to make a point in sharing exactly how I work and what I do and the results you can expect. So it's really transparent and parents know what they're getting. And I've been sharing that, and I guess that was often quite well was received from followers. And that's how I've gotten clients, even though I don't have a huge following. I find social media sometimes a bit draining, to be honest, because you need to be always on to the new thing. But I feel like if you put your personality and your journey into your account, people can relate to you as a person, and they can, imagine being coached by you. So I think that's been a huge help, just, being myself and being really open with how I work. And obviously the grandparents are a huge help during that time, because my husband, he runs his own business, but we've managed really well. And I've been able to fit it in without it feeling overwhelming. And it's been growing steadily without ever feeling like it's taking over our family life. I've been really careful with that. So that meant, sometimes working after bedtime. Obviously, my children don't nap for very long. So nap time isn't, and my oldest, he hasn't napped since his second birthday. So it's usually after bedtime that I get, some other work done, or, in the morning. But it's been working really well when I'm in charge of, how to schedule it and respect the other factors in my life as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love what you're saying about, just being transparent and authentic in your social media. And I think a lot of people can relate to the fact that it's not always easy or fun showing up consistently on social media. But
Yeah.
And it sounds like for you, it's that transparency and honesty that has gained you traction and clients, rather than having a massive audience per se, which I know is so encouraging to so many people who are struggling with building a following. It's not always about the number of followers, is it?
No, not at all. And I feel like that's a huge misconception that, if you're focusing so much on the number of people following you, it depends more on who's following you. If you have like loads of business accounts following you, these are probably not going to be people that want to work with you. But if you have a lovely following of a couple of hundred parents, you have lots of potential clients there. And I guess I don't see myself so much as a brand or, a business, but more just as a person that offers a service. So I try to show up as that, with my unique experience that I have with sleep. And it definitely has felt easier. And I don't know how else I could have made it work because I certainly can't become a different person for social media, and I also can't make up extra time to post so much. So basically, now that I've been postpartum, I've taken a break, but my following still remains. I've actually have a lot of views anytime I post, even though it's really inconsistent. So I often feel like, it's not so much about algorithm or, all these rules you need to follow, but more who you are and people following you that can relate to you or interested in your journey.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Thank you for sharing. I'm interested, what difference has being a sleep coach made for you as a person? You've talked a little bit about your family life, but how does it feel now you're working for yourself, you're doing something that's meaningful, that you're passionate about? What difference has that made to you?
Honestly, it's a huge difference, and I don't know if I can ever go back to something else, just because it's so flexible, and that's really what I need with young children, because I can basically step away from it when I can't for a week or two, and then I go back and I make all the decisions, and which sometimes feels overwhelming if you're new to it, but I'm growing to enjoy it. And it's such a personal project, really. And especially if you do the work, the sleep coaching is so meaningful because you have such an impact on families. It's all online, so you've never met them, but just knowing the lasting impact you have on someone's parenting journey, it's so special, and it really doesn't feel like work to me. And I've gained so many new skills, the just working on social media. If you're not naturally an extroverted person, you really need to put yourself out there, and you need to learn some new skills, and made a huge difference to my life in general, just how I approach sleep coaching and working with clients and families. You can understand so much better about what other families are going through, and it really helps to have empathy, because not every parent has the same issue, but they're all affected by it, and we're all kind of in the same boat. So definitely just the skills that I had to learn, and it's been such a growth journey for me to be able to pursue this. And it had a really positive impact on my life in general, and especially the families I work with, the community you're getting is just, I think, what most parents are missing. A lot of us are quite lonely. It's just like a little community where everyone is struggling a little bit with sleep and want to sleep train, and that's also a really nice benefit.
Amazing. And just to slightly shift gears now, so if you think back to when you had finished studying, you'd completed the program, what did it look like when you first began to build your business up? How did you go from absolutely no clients but lots of knowledge to building that thriving business that meets your needs as a family and works for you? Can you talk to us a little bit about how that transition went?
Yeah, definitely. I want to be really honest that it's been trial and error, just because it's all online, and obviously that world has been completely new to me. Yeah, so it's definitely been just repeating days of doing something consistently and reviewing maybe my posts, or what has worked and what didn't, especially with social media, or just clients. So I think it's actually really good to have a client who's not a right fit for you in the beginning. I think that actually happens to a lot of us, that we end up with a client that isn't really the right fit for us. And I think that's a great learning experience. So I definitely had that at the beginning, where I was like, okay, this is not the client that I want. What do I need to change to attract the people that I really want to work with? And I definitely also tried to put that into my content. So that really meant, sharing some things that you might be a little bit uncomfortable, not fully uncomfortable, otherwise I wouldn't share it, but, maybe not be so perfect on social media. So, just sharing maybe about my own children's sleep, that it's not perfect, it is not linear, because it's really easy to sell something where you're like, okay, so I'm going to fix the child's sleep and they're going to sleep great for the rest of their lives, and that just isn't the case. So I think it's important to be honest about that, and there will be people who will then be like, okay, that's not for me. But this will also attract people who are like, oh, she's open and honest about it. And, this is what sleep actually looks like. And I feel like she's transparent with me. And that has definitely helped attracting the right clients. And then, just consistency, honestly, consistency always, like having a really good intake form and questionnaire where you get as much information. I find that super valuable. I really try to analyze everything to a T, so I'm not missing anything. And, having a good intake form and, looking at sleep for a couple of days, that's been super helpful. And then, just being confident in your recommendations, but also being confident in being, adjusting. Sometimes things don't work out the way you plan, and it's always important to then be able to shift gears with the client and offer them something else. And just a repetition of that, and also being able to check in with other sleep coaches and you where during the coaching calls has been super helpful. And that's these are the ingredients of how it all works. So just being brave and honest, you're repeating the steps over and over. So you're posting on social media, you're sharing a bit of client success, so you're transparent and always reflecting on what worked well with the client, what did you do well there, what could be improved. Yeah, I guess that's just always learning and always trying to improve how you serve parents is, I guess, the recipe for success.
Yeah, thank you for sharing top tips there. And how long would you say it took, all that phase of kind of trying and experimenting and testing the water? How long would you say it took from finishing the course to feeling like, actually, this is working really well? I know there's been a pause for your second child, but how long would you say that to build that up?
So I did actually start to see clients before I graduated, when I finished all the modules. So if you take that in, it's going to be a bit longer. But I guess after graduation, where I've already gained some client experience, I think it was a couple more months, maybe like 6 months, maybe a bit more, where I felt like I was able to get clients consistently. But also, keep in mind, my child was home full time with me during that time. And I didn't overburden myself. So, other people might have other results, other progress, but I would definitely just mentally try to play the long game and not to put too much pressure on yourself, especially if you have a small family, because I think it often seems like that clients should be waiting for you once you graduate, when actually, just like any other skill or any other job, you need to work on it and be patient for it to really develop into what you want it to develop. And I always recommend maybe doing some additional business coaching if you feel like you're really struggling in that area, and outsourcing other things, maybe with your website, if you feel overwhelmed with that, so you can focus more on the actual sleep coaching or whatever you are good at. That's also been helpful in terms of taking a bit of the load off of me, because you have so many aspects within the sleep coaching, but also just having an online business where you need to have so much knowledge and skills, and sometimes you just know you're not good at something, or it would take so much time. So
Yeah.
I definitely also hired some help for my website, for example. I was like, I have no idea how to do this. I really don't want to spend days on this. That's just
Yeah.
my personal experience. If you're not a parent of young children, your time might look different, and you could scale in a different way. But I've been able to fit it in really where I'm happy with, where I am within the time that I've worked on it.
Wonderful. I think you've said it all really there. It's about showing up, being consistent, being willing to try, have a rethink, do a U-turn. So thank you for sharing so honestly. That's really, really helpful. And yeah, totally relate to outsourcing. I am the queen of outsourcing jobs that I can't do. It's just such a waste of time to plow on,
Yes.
isn't it? Just outsource it. It ends up being more time and money efficient,
Yes.
doesn't it? Because if
Yeah.
you're really good at seeing clients, the amount of time that you're going to waste doing something that's really difficult, you're just going to
Yeah.
lose money in the long run, aren't you, by not
Yes.
seeing those clients. So thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing. So I'm curious, is there a result that you're really proud of? So is there a client that stands out for you? I know you've seen hundreds of clients, but is there somebody who really sticks out for you that was a real success?
I mean, there are honestly several. Yeah, I think I remember there was a family and they had, I think, 18-month old, almost 2-year old, and they were so sleep deprived and he was waking hourly and, really restless during sleep. And they felt really at loss. And they've also read a lot about sleep. They were really educated and they just couldn't figure out what the issue was. So we basically identified that he might have an iron deficiency. They went to the doctor. They were really shocked how low his iron levels were. And, he was just catching up on sleep. He was always sleepy. And because of the sleep coaching and what we did with also the bedtime routine and everything, it was a complete turnaround for them. And they basically had a different child and they were like so grateful because they didn't even think about deficiency, but he was really, really, really deficient. And so they worked with a dietitian and obviously took some supplements and we worked on bedtimes and naps. Yeah, they were just super grateful. And they saw such a turnaround within like, I don't know, a couple of weeks. So like maybe 2 weeks. He was a completely different child. They went from, so many wakings and so much restlessness to almost sleeping through the night. And
Wow.
I've had that a couple more times where we could really shift hourly waking quite quickly, but you could really tell it had such an impact on them and their mental health and their parenting. Yeah, I think they were really glad they didn't go towards, the mainstream sleep approach because they probably would have missed it.
Yeah, totally. It would have completely disregarded that underlying cause, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing. And it's not always about the sleep outcome, isn't it? It's about the massive impact on the whole family, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
So
definitely.
rewarding. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. So tell us, in terms of the holistic sleep coaching program itself, clearly you decided you wanted to be a sleep coach. What made you decide, right, I'm going to train with the holistic sleep coaching program?
I guess it was my experience of being a client because I couldn't find that information anywhere. And like I said, I literally read everything about sleep. I knew so much about it, but I just couldn't find the information that I needed. And then it just had such an impact on me and on my parenting and on my mental health. I just couldn't believe how simple it was. It was just the things weren't complicated or hard. It was just the right thing for my individual child and their needs. And I just had a chat with Patrice and told her that I was considering it. And she just gave me basically the missing information. And I also had a call with you. And it just really reassured me and, how evidence-based it was. And also the support you get after you graduate was definitely something that I found really intriguing because you do often need, some peer support even if you've done this for a while. Sometimes there's a case where you just aren't sure. And, just knowing before I started that, this isn't like I'm going to graduate and then basically I'm on my own, that felt really reassuring and great. So that definitely convinced me to go for it and that I could do it in my own time, because at the time when I started training, my oldest was 8 months old, so I just needed something that I could do flexibly in my own time.
Yeah,
And yeah, so everything just seemed perfect to my conditions at the time in terms of
amazing.
the time I'm able to invest and what I want to do.
Yeah. And was there anything you were nervous about? Anything that you were unsure about before you got going?
I guess it's always, sleep is such a personal and intimate thing. And to this day, I never take it lightly when someone trusts me with their child's sleep, because it is a family issue most of the time where lots of factors play a role. And I guess sometimes the idea of that responsibility felt a bit overwhelming, where I thought, can I take this on? Can I do a good job? What if I failed as a family horribly? And that definitely came to mind. But yeah, after I joined the program, it was so thorough and in depth. And I also feel the the coaching process is really well explained and, refined, I guess. So you really know what to do in which situation. And if you don't, you always have the community and you to get back to get some really good advice. And that's super helpful.
I love our coaching calls, and I especially love it actually when people who have graduated a long time ago, like you and some of the others, come along and they're like, "Oh, Linz, I've got a real corker of a
Yeah.
situation here. Can I just bounce this around the room?" They're the best because we all learn so much from those. Because you're right, that sense of responsibility for each family who are all completely unique. We should never take that lightly, should we? We should always kind of be humbled by that, shouldn't we?
Yeah,
So thank
definitely.
you for sharing that. And was there anything that surprised you about the program? Was there anything that kind of stood out for you, or a favorite module, or anything that you wanted to kind of pick up on?
So I was definitely surprised how in depth it was, and it really reminded me of studying at university. So I guess I was like, oh, I really need to study for this. Not in a bad way. It was actually, I really liked the module at the very beginning about, the history of sleep training and, attachment, the module of attachment. I feel like these basics are really, really important. Just as a background, it's not like the practical stuff you do day to day, but it's always in the back of your mind as a reminder. And then I also really love the module around feeding, so the breastfeeding and how it all works, and allergy. Also found that super interesting. So those are definitely some of my favorites.
Amazing. Okay. Just a hypothetical question here. If you hadn't done this program, where do you think you'd be right now?
I guess I'd be a stay-at-home mom just because with my husband's own business, if both parents are running their own business full time, it would be a challenge. It would have been hard to do something in my area of work just for a few hours. So I guess I would have opted to stay home
Mm.
just because my husband's hours are quite demanding. And it would really take a toll on our family if I'd also be working, this amount with young children who really need me, and, during that sensitive time in their development. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'd just be a stay-at-home mom. Yeah.
Yeah, you are. Not just, but I know
Yeah,
what you mean.
I would be a stay-at-home mom, probably looking for people
Yeah,
um, to talk sleep with.
yeah, yeah. See, you'd kind of still be talking about sleep probably. Yeah, I totally hear that. Okay. And so just as we wrap up then, I'm curious, is there a particular age group that you love to work with? Is there something that has particularly caught your interest, or a topic, or do you love it all?
I do love it all, but toddlers have a special place for me just because it's such an interesting age, and it always takes most parents by surprise how much their needs change and how much different sleep is. So I really love that age group because it isn't so much about sleep. It's a lot about parenting and boundaries and individual needs. There's just so much depth when working with toddlers. And I do really love that just because I can also kind of throw in a little bit of my childcare experience. It really doesn't feel like it's so much about sleep anymore. It's really a lot about parenting, and obviously that's the area I worked in. So I love that I can combine the two with that age
Amazing.
group. So, and I also think that's a time where parents often can have an epiphany around their child's needs and sleep, and also an area where you can see results quite quickly, where you don't have to do something so consistently, where even small tweaks can really show up at the same day. That you notice, oh, that bedtime felt really different, or this was so much easier, and it was such a simple shift. So I really love that age because I think it's quite rewarding in terms of sleep strategies, but also just parenting tweaks in general. And it is often labeled as a really tough age. What I really love, especially 1.5 to 2.5, I think is my favorite age.
Yeah. I love that age group as well. Maybe a little bit older, but it's lovely hearing about why people love particular ages if they do. Is there anything you're working on at the moment? Any projects? Anything exciting that we can cheer you on for?
Yeah, so I'm actually about to release my first digital product, and I'm a bit nervous about it because I do love the one-on-ones, and I
Okay.
really wanted something that would serve parents over a longer period of time, because I feel like bedtime is something that is often really misunderstood, especially in the toddler age group. It's also a time where the needs of parents and children really clash. And as a parent myself, who has a child, he doesn't really do the whole bath time routine. I tried books when he was, maybe 1.5 years old, and it just didn't work. And I just needed something else that was quick and efficient and connection filled, but also that wouldn't take hours. So I think parents really need a resource, especially if they don't have a lot of time after childcare, or if something has changed, maybe there's a sibling family now, mom's returned to work full time, or where needs around bedtime change, and we need something to go back to kind of have ideas on how to address it basically, and what the issue is. So I really tried hard to put that into a guide where parents can really identify what the issue is, and they can serve them over a longer period of time with their child's growth. So I'm doing something different now with my 3-year-old than I did, a year and a half ago. And now that I have a baby, it also has changed. And I feel like it isn't really talked about enough, how much is happening, at the end of the day, and that it can be a really frustrating time, and it can be heartbreaking to have bedtime battles if you're not spending a lot of time with your child. You also have your own needs, obviously, that you really want to tend to, and yeah, it just can be frustrating if you're dreading bedtime, basically. And there can be some really simple shifts that can really help make bedtime an enjoyable time that you can look forward to without spending an hour in their bedroom waiting for them to go to sleep. So I really tried hard to put that into a guide where giving parents permission to just experiment, while also identifying what actually the issue is. And
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to releasing that soon.
Amazing. Well, we wish you all the very best with that. It's lovely to start diversifying, isn't it? And being able to support parents in different
Yes.
ways. So yeah, congratulations with that.
Thank you.
So as we come into land, what would you say to somebody who's watching this? They're wondering if the program's the right fit. What would your advice be?
So I would definitely say, so if you've read every blog article on overtiredness, then you're probably the right person for this program. But no, really, I do think you need to have an interest in sleep and how many factors play into it. Just be aware that, it isn't just the sleep coaching, but also other areas that need to build skills in to succeed as a sleep coach, whether you work online or not. And I guess not to be afraid to just play the long game, have patience. Don't expect too much of yourself, and basically ruin your experience by thinking you need to get to a certain point within like a few months. Basically give yourself some time to actually do the modules and build your social media. Yeah, I guess just enjoy the process and enjoy working with families. I think that's really important. And empathy is also a big one. I think you really need to have empathy and be able to relate to parents that might be going through something completely different than you. I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah, thank you. Wise words. It's been absolutely lovely talking to you. How can people
Yes,
find you
likewise.
if they want to network or connect?
So you can find me on Instagram. It's at Julia Lale Loves Sleep. And you can find me also via my website, which is lalelovesleep.com. I'm usually always responding on social media, but also if you fill in the contact form on my website, I will also get back to you. But yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram. Yeah, join the community there. I share lots of, client progress, debunking myths, and doing lots of Q&As. Yeah, definitely head on to my Instagram. That's probably the best place.
Wonderful. Thank you so, so much for joining me today. It's been absolutely lovely talking to you. And thank you to everybody who has listened to this interview. we hope to connect with you very soon. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye.
Thank you.